Hi, everyone. This is Rahul.
Hey everyone, this is Yusuf, and today we're bringing you guys a show on some tennis topics for today. So to start off, we'll be talking about the GOAT conversation, and then we'll be talking about some next-gen players, and we'll tie it all up together with who's helped most by the ATP ranking freeze. So let's just get started. Rahul, what are your thoughts on the GOAT convo? What's going on?
Sounds good to me. I'm ready to get rolling. I have a few opinions here and there, but I think it's pretty simple, honestly. For me.
Oh God.
When we talk about players who are currently relevant, when we talk about players who have the best head to head, there's only
You and your head to head. Okay, you and your. We already know where this is going, guys.
there's only a few players who are in this conversation right now. I think we can safely agree that the big three, Novak, Federer, Nadal, they've kind of overtaken the rest of the pack currently and all time in terms of those are the top three players of all time. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably go. I think it's safe to say Nadal is probably the best because he's won 19 slams. He's 5 years younger than Federer, who's only won
Not
one more
20.
slam than but only won one more slam than him. 5 years younger. He's still peaking. He won like a slam literally last year. Novak's doing good right now, but he still has two fewer slams. Nadal's got the head-to-head over Federer. So for
Oh
me,
my God.
I think 24-16 is that right? Yeah, 60% of his matches he's won against Federer. Sounds like he wins there, and I will give Novak the credit that he has the head-to-head over Nadal. A close record, but he still has that head-to-head. But
Okay.
still lacking in the Grand Slam department. I think he can do with a few more big titles. But if I had to, if tennis stops from right now, at this moment in time, who I have to say is the best, I'd go with Nadal. What are your thoughts on that, Yusuf?
All right, well, that's probably one of the worst takes I've ever heard. Like that's just
Oh my
stupid.
God.
Okay, so this is just stupid. All right, well, let's lay it down for you guys. Obviously, there's a difference between who's going to end up being GOAT and who's the GOAT right now, end of March of 2020. Obviously, we can't predict where careers are going to go. So I'm talking about the GOAT today. We're looking at March 28th. You lock it in. Who is the GOAT right now? The coronavirus ends the tennis tour. Who's the GOAT? It's an obvious answer. Who has the most slams? Roger Federer. Who has the most weeks at number one? Roger Federer. Who has the most consecutive weeks at number one? Roger Federer. Who is the most iconic tennis player of all time? Roger Federer.
He's record against both his main contemporaries, though. I don't know. I feel like the guy who's the best should probably be beating the best. Wouldn't you say that?
That's really great if Nadal beat him in his backyard at some random ATP 500 tournament that no one cares about, right? What matters are slams. Slams are the big things, okay? The fact is, tennis is not a team sport. You can't make the argument that someone is better than the other person, even though they have less championships than the other. Tennis is a singular sport. You have one player, one racket, and one ball, okay?
That's a lot of words for someone who hasn't, beaten the other guy.
All I'm going to say is who's won 20 slams? Who's been world number one the longest? These are metrics that determine who the best player is. And if Nadal doesn't get past 20 slams, it's end of story.
So you're saying that, in your opinion, the only way Nadal overtakes Federer is if he gets to 20 slams or even gets past it.
Has to get to 21.
The fact that he's 5 years younger. So
no, because we're ending it today. No, because we're ending. No. We're ending the tour today.
We're talking about in a vacuum, right? Like in the span of their tennis careers, who has done the most in their career with the time they've had, right? Like Federer's been on the tour X amount of years more than Nadal. In the time Nadal's been on the tour, he's won more big titles than Federer has.
All right. If you look at
big titles, I mean Grand Slams. I'm talking about Masters 1000s. Talking about ATP Tour titles. I'm talking like Nadal, and I'm not talking about the 500s or 250s. I'm talking about the big ones. The 1000s, the Grand Slams. Nadal's won more in a shorter time span. And so for me, GOAT is like who has done the most with the time they've had on the tour. That's Nadal.
That's stupid. It doesn't matter how long you've been on the tour. It matters how many you've won. End of story. It's period. Longevity is part of it, right? The fact that Federer's competing at this age gives him the reason why he's still around, still winning slams. We have to consider that. If Federer had stopped at Nadal's age, right, he would have ended up with 17 slams. So Federer's 38 right now, Nadal's 33. So let's subtract 5 years. 2015, Federer had made the final, had made a couple slam finals, 2014, 2015. It was very close, didn't make it. He would have ended up with 17 slams. I mean,
you're bringing up that, like, and so another thing that I want to talk about, which you like to talk about, right, is consistency, right? It's not just about one moment in time. It's about, like, the longevity of one's career, right? Nadal, he went 10 straight years winning a Grand Slam, right? Federer had a 5-year time period. I don't know if you remember this, but he did have a 5-year time period where he didn't win a single Grand Slam. 2012, 2017. I mean, he won that Australian Open, but that 5-year time period, he might have been competitive in a few Wimbledons here or there, but he wasn't winning anything. And Nadal
here or there. All right, time out. Here or there. All right, let's time out.
Nadal
here or there
has either won a Grand Slam or been competitive. You know, he had I think I'd say out of every year he's been on the tour, I'd say 2015 or 2016 he had that one like kind of down year. But other than that, he's been on the tour and he's been winning.
Okay. Federer made the finals of slams in 2014 and 2015. This is a terrible argument. Federer was close. Doesn't matter. He was obviously competitive, and something that says how good he is the fact that he doesn't have to take very, very, very long periods of time off in the middle of his prime, right? Nadal's had to take long time off. But regardless, it doesn't matter.
All players. I mean, you know, but the thing is that when Nadal's on the court, which I will say, you know, the one thing I will give Federer is he's been on the court more than Nadal, but he still hasn't won as much as Nadal. Why?
No, of course, he's won 20 slams. What do you mean? He's won more slams than Nadal. He's been world number one longer. What do you mean? These are the metrics of greatness.
I'm saying that the people, like, in that time period that Federer has won the 20 slams, if you take it into account, like, he's been on the tour for 20 years. Nadal's been on the tour for 5 years fewer, and he's won 19. So the rate at which Nadal's winning is higher than the rate at which Federer is winning.
No, but it doesn't matter. So if Nadal and Federer both retired right now and Novak retired, we're talking about if we look at, we're not talking about rates or anything. We're talking about who's the GOAT right now. We don't care about rates. We don't care about how long someone's career is. It's how much someone has won. And Federer has won the most. It's simple. It's a simplistic argument, but at the end of the day, we can use this argument in tennis.
I think like there is something to be said about longevity, right? And like having been consistent. But like, you know, I would be inclined to give that argument about, oh, you know, Federer's won one more slam or whatever. But the fact that, you know, the head-to-head also for Nadal is so like lopsided in his favor, like it shows that, like, you know, Federer and Nadal both won their fair share of big tournaments, but then when they go head-to-head, it's pretty lopsided in Nadal's favor. That's what kind of, you know, also tips me over the edge in that direction, if that makes sense to you.
Okay, well, let's talk about the head-to-head, because this is obviously an argument that everyone likes to have.
Yeah, of course.
Let's break down the head-to-head by surface, right? Obviously, surfaces are a big deal. Let's look at, so we have three main surfaces, right? We have hard court.
Yeah, we have
grass court.
It's called a tennis surface.
Okay, we have three surfaces. I mean, that's stupid. Obviously, we have clay. We have clay, we have grass, and we have hard, okay? So what's the head-to-head? I have the stats up right here. The head-to-head on the hard court. Federer leads 11-9. And that includes both a wash. That's not a wash. He's leading, and those have happened on both slow and fast. If anything, hard court is the great equalizer between these two, because you have everything from the fast courts at the World Tour Finals to the really, really slow hard courts in something like Miami. Okay, so you have a breadth. But let me finish. Well, let me finish one second. Okay, it's my turn. My turn.
Okay. All right. Okay. I didn't know we're getting
grass court
now all of a sudden. I'll let you finish. Go for it.
Grass court, 3-1. Let's look at that. 3-1. 75% of matches. And then we look on clay, 14-2. So you tell me, if there were more Masters tournaments on grass, if Nadal played Federer more on grass, you're telling me that the head-to-head wouldn't have been more even? I mean, come on, it's obvious. It's obvious if they played more on grass, Federer would have won more. It's that simple.
So I'll give it to you, right? Nadal dominated on clay. If they played more on grass, right, it probably would have been closer there. And then, you know, it's safe to say that the hard court is pretty even, right? But what puts it over the top for me, again, is that we talk about, like, big moments, right? Big matches. If we look at the Grand Slam finals that they've competed in, right? Grass, French Open, Australian Open, because they haven't competed in the U.S. Open final. That's pretty lopsided to me. Nadal has a winning record over Federer in Grand Slam finals at 6-3.
Yeah, and because most of those came at the French Open.
On what? No. It's also Wimbledon. He's beaten him.
He beat him once. He's only beaten him once at Wimbledon.
He's won against Federer on grass in a Grand Slam final. And then on top of the fact that the overall record is a winning record, and we can debate ticky-tack things like surface by surface. I'd say like when the matches are the biggest and it's the high leverage moments, Nadal seems to be the one who's putting it on Federer.
All I'm going to say is the last 3 years, the head-to-head between Roger Federer and Nadal has been completely lopsided. I mean, Federer's been destroying Nadal since the 2017 Australian Open. I mean, Nadal has no answer for Federer's backhand. Federer takes his flatter backhand, takes it up on the rise. Nadal has no answer to that. But the problem is that now they're not meeting in matches anymore. It's the same story. It's been all their careers. When Federer shows up, Nadal's not there. But when they both show up, Federer's there because Federer's more consistent. Look, Federer can make it to the semis when he's not playing very well because he finds a way through, and then Nadal will dumpster him when Federer's playing terrible. But the opposite isn't true.
So let's get one thing right? Now, till 3 years ago, 2018, Nadal had the overwhelming 23-10 was the match record between them, right? But then
2017.
But then was it 2017?
That's when Federer won the Australian Open. Yeah.
But then the year that Federer won his 2 slams, right? 2017. That was the one year where Federer's, had a good record against Nadal. He beat him 5 times that year. But then again, 2 years later, they were 1-1, both winning on their favorite surface. And then the overall record is still, after all these years, Federer's had that 1 year where he's beaten Nadal more times than, Nadal's beaten him. So I don't know, 23-10, and then, on top of recently 1-1, I'd say I don't know. I'd say I'll give Federer that 1 year. I'll give Federer the 1 year.
Federer the 1 year. Nadal wins 60% of matches. Federer wins 40% of matches, and that's not corrected for surface. Look, end of story. Nadal's the better clay court player. Federer is obviously the better grass court player. And on hard, they're about even. That tells you exactly what you want to say. So the head-to-head is meaningless because they're about even when you compare by surface.
I wouldn't say it's meaningless because, if you're talking about just an average match, sure. But then you also take into account the big matches. Nadal's beaten him more in the biggest matches, right? Then you're also taking into account the fact that, I don't know. For me, it's just more of a, you got to take everything into account, right? You got to take into account that the time that Nadal's had, which is less than the times Federer's had, he's won at a higher rate. He doesn't have a losing record against both of his main contemporaries, which Federer does.
So, I mean, if we want to talk about head-to-head, I mean, is Nikola Davydenko then better than Nadal? Because he has a better head-to-head. Is Andy Roddick better than Novak Djokovic? Because Andy Roddick beat Novak in the big moments. He's beaten him at slams.
Yeah, but
that's a stupid argument. It's a stupid argument.
We're talking about 1-0. It's not a span of 50 matches.
Not 1-0. Davydenko and Nadal, the head-to-head is it's 6-5.
No.
They've played a bunch of times. And Nadal racked up those wins when Davydenko was nearly off the tour. He was about to retire. He was in a wheelchair. When
talk about racking up wins, I talk about Federer's early Grand Slam record. When he
went, here we go.
Third, I think, what is it? Let me look this up. I believe 12 or 13-0 against. I don't even know some of these names, man. I'm
what do you mean? These are some of the greats.
Some of the greats? Are you kidding me? Hold on.
We're talking about Hewitt. We're talking about Roddick. We're talking about Safin. We're talking about people that are amazing.
I don't think anyone would say that Hewitt's by no means not a great. He's a tennis legend. But if we're comparing them to Nadal, Murray, or Djokovic, we're talking about names like Philippopoulos, Marat Safin's really good. Andy Roddick, who Federer just throttled every time.
Andy Roddick nearly beat Federer in 2009.
Federer started his career, I think, 10-1, only playing Nadal 2 times.
And Nadal didn't show up. Whose fault is that? You're telling me Nadal shows up at the U.S. Open in 2006 in the finals. Federer's going to dumpster Nadal in that final. Are you kidding me?
Okay, if we're talking about not showing up, I'll talk about last year when Federer didn't show up to the U.S. Open finals last year. So let's not talk about not showing up, okay?
Well, all I'm going to say is the slam they met at last year when they showed up. Nadal beat Federer on clay, and then Federer beat him on grass.
No, I'll say that, but then not on hard court. Hard court, Nadal took it last year. Anyways, I think it's fair to say we've beaten this topic.
I was about to say we should transition to the next thing.
We'll agree to disagree.
Well, as many tennis fans will. So if we want to talk about the next thing, which is who's going to break through, right? I mean, who's the next big player to break through? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the big thing about this topic is, right, we've seen the big three dominate for so long. Like the last 13 slams, 12, 13 slams, big threes won. So who's going to be that first? And we're going to specifically talk about next gen players. So I'd say like we keep it to like, I don't know if we count team, but I'd say I want to keep it like 23, age 23 and under player, person in the next gen. Maybe we can count team as well, but any young player is going to be the next one to break this stronghold that they have. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I feel like at this point, like anyone who's not the big three is next gen. Because we remember when Raonic was next gen. I mean, we remember when Dimitrov was next gen. My man Dimitrov, who won the World Tour Finals, but then suddenly didn't show up in the Australian Open. So we're
Okay.
talking about next gen. Next gen is everyone. Basically, like
Anyone
I don't know.
yeah.
I really like. I would tell you what. I was watching the U.S. Open. Medvedev was throwing rockets like I'd never seen before against Djokovic. I mean, every match he played, he was just he had that like instinct in his eye. He had that look where he knew he was going to win that match. I mean, the fifth set when he came back down, I thought he was going to run the table. I thought he was going to come back down from all those breaks and win the match, and he was nearly there. But I think there's a moment in every player's career where if you don't like win that first couple of slams, you get kind of broken. So like,
Oh
you
my
think
God, you saying he's broken?
I'm not saying he's broken. I'm saying that with these younger players, right? Like Team, he's been to 3 slam finals. He got dumpstered in the first French Open final. He did 4 sets in the second one, and then he almost beat Djokovic in this one. But then Djokovic came back. So what I worry about is that when these next-gen players don't have that early success, like you had Roger Federer, first slam final, got it. Nadal, first slam final French Open, got it. Djokovic won in 2008 in the Australian Open. That was very early.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that these greats, they start early. And so it's very difficult for me to see these people who have already lost slam finals, really make that breakthrough. So I'm concerned about that. The only way I see anyone breaking through is if all 3 of Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic, all of them just fall off. I don't think anyone's going to break through. I think they just have to fall off.
So you okay? So let me get this right. So your answer is no one.
Nobody in the next gen is going to break through.
So let me get this. Let me clarify one more time. In the next, let's go for 2 years. Next 6 or 8 slams. You think it's just going to be the big three running the table?
Yeah, I think okay, let's do the math. Let's hypothetically predict that the French Open still does it later in the year. We have 7 more slams to go.
Okay.
Of the 7 slams, I think 5 out of 7 go to the big 3 in the worst case scenario. Because in the other 2 slams will happen when the big 3 lose very early, or something crazy happens where some next gen player just kind of sneaks through the draw and ends up, sneaking in the final. If someone like Medvedev, TM, or anybody beats a big 3 player in the final of a slam, there you go. But that's not going to happen in the next 2 years.
So for me, I think I seem to have a very different viewpoint about this, which maybe I'm overly optimistic in the next gen, but I don't think I am, because I think one of the big things is that the next gen have shown that they can beat the big 3 in like regular tournaments, right? We're talking about 3-set matches. They've been winning Masters 1000s. They've been winning regular tournaments, especially Medvedev has been beating Djokovic in them. TM has, won some clay court tournaments where Nadal's been involved, and he's won he's beaten Nadal on clay court each of the last 3 years. But the big, we're talking about Grand Slam, right? Where the next gen hasn't been able to break through is when they have to play 5 sets, right? TM wins 2 of the first 3 sets in the U.S. Open, or not in the U.S. Open, but in the
Australian. Yeah.
But then, he can't close the deal against Djokovic. And then, Medvedev seems to be pulling it back against Nadal in the U.S. Open last year from 2 sets to love down. But then that 5th set can't close the deal, right? And even in the clay court finals that TM has been in, he just he looks outmatched when it's a longer format tournament. So, but what I think is going to happen is that now that, like you're saying that they haven't won early on, and so since they didn't get that breakthrough early on, they're not going to have the confidence to win later on. I think that now that especially a team has had all these moments where he's gotten close, and he just hasn't, made that hump. He hasn't made that jump yet. I think this could be the year that both of them, I don't think both of them are going to win it, but I think one of the two can take it. My money, if I had to put money on someone, I'd say U.S. Open this year, I think Medvedev can take it because the difference is that team always really seems to get dragged into these long 5-set matches early on in Grand Slam tournaments, which always by the end of Grand Slam tournaments, he's like tired or he's not playing at his best level. But I think Medvedev is the one guy who can play consistent throughout the Grand Slam tournament. In his first final appearance, he almost took it to Nadal. And we've seen that, the big guy, even if some of these young guys can beat Federer or Nadal, they always seem to lose against Djokovic. Medvedev doesn't have that issue. So I think Medvedev this year in the U.S. Open, I think he's got it. I don't know.
Wait. Sorry, wait. 2019. Yeah, it was Nadal in the final. And I'm confused. Did Medvedev? Did he play Djokovic in the U.S. Open?
I don't. Last year, I don't know if he.
Yeah, last year. I think I've mixed that up. That's on me.
I didn't say he played Djokovic in the U.S. Open.
No. I think I might have said that by accident because they played earlier this year. That's why I mixed it up.
Okay.
Yeah. They played at Cincinnati. They played at Cincinnati last year. That's why I mixed it up. Yeah. Sorry.
So they played.
He beat him in Cincinnati. Yeah, they played, but he didn't play him in the U.S. Open. Sorry.
Yeah. So they played a few of the hard courts.
Yeah. I mixed that up. Yeah, it was Nadal in the finals. But I don't know. I actually think Thiem could take the French Open if the French Open plays.
You think?
Because that's his tournament. I mean, that's his tournament. He's consistent. I mean, I don't think he will. I think the only way I think if Nadal somehow loses, the way I see it happening is the big three person that everyone needs to be worried about loses early. Someone sneaks through. That's exactly what I see happening. So I think that's what's gonna happen. But
I think it's gonna be. I think the only way that one of these guys break through is that they need to beat one of the big three in the final, and because I don't think at any point this year we're not gonna have a single player from the big three in the final. I think a big three member is always gonna be in the final. And
I agree.
It's gonna have to be someone who can beat one of those guys. And the only person, I don't think Thiem is there yet. At least on I don't think even a French clay court he's there yet. But I think Medvedev, I don't think he's scared of any of them. I think he can do it because I think he's the one who always stays consistent into a tournament. At least if we're taking into account last year,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to the last topic then, which is then who's helped most by this ATP ranking freeze. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I guess it's not too much of a crazy take from me, but I think that the person who's helped the most is someone who's going into the year potentially missing out on a lot of points in that middle chunk of the year from February to June. And the one player who was going to be injured and had the potential to lose a lot of his points was Federer, who ended up playing the clay court swing last year. And so all the points that he racked up last year would have just gone. But now with the freeze, he's gonna have the time to recover through while all these all this stuff happens. He's gonna have the time to recover, get back to full strength, and he's not gonna lose any points. And he had the potential to drop out of the top 10 going into Wimbledon, and that's no longer a thing for him. He's still gonna, if Wimbledon happens as it's supposed to happen this year and things don't get delayed any further, Federer's gonna still keep his top 3-4 ranking, keep his seed, not have to play as many tough matches earlier on as he would have if he was 10th or 11th seed. So honestly, for me, I think, and just the time for him to recover from his injury, which looked a bit serious earlier on in the year, I think it's going to help him the most. What are your thoughts?
I think that's actually a really fair point. I think this is really great timing for Federer. I mean, obviously he needs to recover in time. I mean, his slam every year is Wimbledon, essentially. I mean, that's the one where his footwork, which is excellent on grass court, comes out the most because, you need really good footwork to be effective on grass, especially in the first week when it's really slick and a lot of the dirt hasn't come up yet. And while there's still a lot of grass, that's why it's a bit more prone for a big hitter to upset someone like Nadal early on, because harder to get into longer rallies when you're slipping and sliding, and not as much as later in the week later in the second week when it gets a lot more dirt at the baseline. It's a lot more slower. It gets a bit, easier to get traction when you're running. So I think that's why that's Federer's best slam. So I agree. great thing to happen for Federer. Not a great thing, but great for just happened to be good. But I think what also no one's talking, well, some people are talking about is how Djokovic now is threatening this number one ranking record. And him and Nadal are very close in terms of ranking points. But all of a sudden, now this little back and forth that could have been happening is now suddenly gone. So I think there's a very good chance that Djokovic takes the number one ranking, which no one thought would ever heard of. No one thought he'd be, over 300 weeks at all. But all of a sudden, he might get there.
If he just holds it till I think, early part of next year, right? Because now I don't think they're going to add the weeks from the rankings freeze, right? So if he just holds it till the early part of next year, he's going to overtake Federer.
And, well, that's going to be a fake record.
Wow. Why? Are you salty that he's been taking away a few of your Wimbledons from, 2014, 2015?
Oh, my God.
I forget. What happened last year? I think something happened last year, right?
It's one of the few moments when the chosen one became the frozen one. I mean, I don't know how, when you're up 40-15, when you've been serving amazing first serves, you go to the forehand. Federer has an obsession, and I love the man. I love Roger Federer. But he has this obsession that he has to beat Djokovic by serving to the forehand. Why at 40-15 did he serve to the forehand? Why? He has an obsession, and why it just befuddles me.
He also has an obsession, it seems, for losing out on match points in Grand Slam finals to Novak Djokovic. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think the U.S. Open 2011 or something. I don't think it's the first time he's a first-time offender over here. Just some players are better built for the bigger moments, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And how did Nadal do at the U.S. Open 2011 after Federer lost to Djokovic? How did that go?
And details. All that matters is that one. Well, I don't want to get back. We don't want to keep rolling back into that comment. But I agree with you on the fact that it does help Djokovic out a bit. But I think that if we're talking about a player who's hurt more by this, I think it's maybe not the most, but I'd say safe to say that a player like Medvedev, who won a lot of his points from last year on the back last year in that hard court swing when he went to, I think it was six consecutive ATP finals in that.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right. He has to go back and defend all those points, and while he was doing really good, then it would have been really good for him to tack on some points in the early part of this year. So I'd say he's definitely one of the players who's he's still gonna probably be in the top 10 and whatnot, but he definitely is hurt by not being able to rack on these points early on.
I mean, if we're talking about next gen players, I think this also helps Dominic, who will get all his clay court swing points to stay with him. But anyway, I think that's a good stopping place. So again, thank you guys for checking into the podcast.
Yeah.
It's been great. I'm Yusuf.
Yeah, I'm Rahul. Yeah, thanks guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us what you want us to talk about in the future. Maybe we'll come out with a few more of these bangers. Let us know what you think.
All right, peace out.